Hi, it's me. This is the story of the day the ocean disappeared. Imagine you're walking along the coast one day and you see something that shouldn't be there, like a rock or a sea creature washed up on shore. You shrug it off and continue your walk. But then you notice more and more of these impossible sights. A few minutes later, you see someone else staring in disbelief at the horizon. They're pointing to the sea. "What's wrong?" you ask them. "The ocean," they reply. "It's gone." Now imagine that this isn't a dream but a terrifying reality. The ocean, the vast body of water that covers over 70% of our planet, has somehow vanished. What would you do next? Would you panic? Would you try to understand what happened? Or would you do something else entirely? Well, believe it or not, this actually happened on November 1st, 1953. And the place where it occurred was the Bay of Fundy. Located in the Gulf of Maine, the bay stretches from the Canadian province of Nova Scotia to the U.S. state of Maine. It's known for having the highest tides in the world, with the difference between low and high tides sometimes reaching 16 meters. But on that fateful day in 1953, something unusual happened in the bay. Residents saw the ocean recede dramatically, revealing a vast expanse of seabed, the water that hadn't come back after 6 hours, leading many to believe that the ocean had literally vanished. So how did this happen and why should you care? Stick around until the end to find out. But before we dive into the mystery of the missing ocean, let me ask you a question. Have you ever experienced a tsunami? Well, if you haven't, then consider yourself lucky, because these giant waves can cause immense destruction. On December 26, 2004, a powerful earthquake struck off the coast of Sumatra, Indonesia, triggering a devastating tsunami that affected 14 countries and claimed over 227,000 lives. In Japan, the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami claimed nearly 16,000 lives and caused widespread damage. The list goes on. So here's a quiz question for you. Which of the following is true about tsunamis? A. They only occur in oceans. B. They have nothing to do with earthquakes. C. Their speed is unaffected by water depth. If you guessed C, you'd be right. Tsunami waves can travel at incredible speeds. In deep water, they can reach 800 kilometers per hour. However, as they approach shallow coastal areas, their speed decreases significantly, causing the wave to slow down. This change in speed can lead to a rise in wave height, resulting in a wall of water that crashes onto the shore. Tsunamis are primarily caused by earthquakes that occur beneath the ocean floor. When the seafloor abruptly rises or falls, it displaces a massive amount of water, creating a series of waves that radiate outward from the source. These waves can travel across entire oceans, sometimes reaching heights of over 30 meters when they hit land. Other causes include underwater volcanic eruptions, landslides, and even meteorite impacts. However, while tsunamis are undoubtedly natural phenomena, their impact on humans is anything but. They can cause widespread devastation, destroying homes, businesses, and entire communities. In fact, some of the most destructive tsunamis in history have occurred just in the last few decades. The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, for example, affected over 14 countries and claimed the lives of over 227,000 people. Similarly, the 2011 Tohoku tsunami in Japan resulted in nearly 16,000 deaths and caused billions of dollars in damage. That's why it's so important to understand the science behind tsunamis and how they form. By learning more about these devastating events, we can better protect ourselves and our communities from their impact. So if you want to learn more about tsunamis, whether it's their causes, their effects, or the latest research and findings, be sure to check out our other videos on the topic. You never know when the knowledge might come in handy. Okay, now let's get back to the mysterious case of the vanishing ocean. Imagine you're strolling along the rocky coastline one sunny afternoon when you notice something peculiar. The ocean, which has been your constant companion throughout your life, has mysteriously disappeared. At first, you think it's a prank, perhaps a temporary figment of your imagination, but as you continue your walk, you realize that the ocean is truly absent. The seabed is exposed, stretching out before you like a vast desert. You're not alone in this perplexing situation. People all around the world are witnessing the same phenomenon. The ocean, which covers over 70% of the Earth's surface, has simply vanished without a trace. panic begins to spread. People wonder if this is the end of the world, or a sign of something even more sinister. Governments scramble to find an explanation and a solution, but no one seems to have any answers. As days turn into weeks and still there's no sign of the ocean returning, people begin to lose hope. Without the ocean, life as we know it is impossible. Food and water supplies dwindle. The climate becomes unbearable and chaos ensues. It's a terrifying thought, but what if this scenario wasn't just a figment of our imagination? What if the ocean really did disappear one day? In 1953, this seemingly impossible event actually occurred in the Bay of Fundy, located in the Gulf of Maine, between the Canadian province of Nova Scotia and the U.S. state of Maine. Residents of the area witnessed an extraordinary sight. The ocean had receded by over 600 feet, exposing the seabed and leaving many wondering where the water had gone. At first, it was believed that the ocean had simply vanished, leaving behind a vast, dry wasteland. But as time passed, it became clear that something else was at play. You might be thinking, how does this story relate to me? Why should I care about what happened in the Bay of Fundy almost 70 years ago? Well, it turns out that understanding this event can help us predict and prepare for similar occurrences in the future. By learning about the causes and effects of this mysterious ocean recession, we can better protect ourselves against future disasters. For starters, the receding of the ocean in the Bay of Fundy was not a one-off event. In fact, it happens every year, though nowhere near as dramatically as in 1953. That's because the Bay of Fundy is known for having the highest tides in the world, with the difference between low and high tide sometimes reaching 50 feet. But in 1953, something different was happening. The tides were higher than usual, and the moon and Earth's gravitational pull could not bring them back up. But that's not all. Scientists also discovered that the ocean floor had moved slightly upwards, causing the water to recede even further. This phenomenon, known as seismic uplift, can occur after earthquakes and was likely triggered by an earthquake that occurred just minutes before the ocean began to recede. However, this earthquake was not a large one. It only measured 7 on the Richter scale, which means it was relatively small compared to some of the earthquakes that have occurred in the past. So why should you care about this seemingly minor earthquake that happened so long ago? Well, it turns out that this event was actually a perfect storm of factors that led to the dramatic recession of the ocean. Not only was the earthquake strong enough to trigger seismic uplift, but it also coincided with unusually high tides and a full moon. All of these factors combined to create an event that was both rare and unforgettable. If you've watched our previous video about the Sumatran tsunami, you might remember the term seismic sea wave, which is another name for tsunami. But did you know that the word tsunami itself means something different? While both terms refer to giant waves caused by earthquakes, there's a subtle but important distinction between them. Seismic sea waves are typically used to describe the initial waves generated by an earthquake, while the term tsunami refers to these waves as they approach shallow coastal areas and cause massive flooding. In the case of the Sumatran tsunami, a massive earthquake triggered a series of seismic sea waves that radiated outward from the epicenter. These waves traveled across the Indian Ocean at incredible speeds, reaching heights of up to 30 meters as they approached land. As I mentioned earlier, understanding the difference between these two terms is crucial to predicting and preparing for potential disasters. By knowing the difference between seismic sea waves and tsunamis, scientists can better estimate the potential impact of an earthquake on coastal areas, giving people more time to evacuate and seek higher ground. Now, while the idea of an earthquake triggering a tsunami may seem scary, it's important to remember that not all earthquakes cause tsunamis. In fact, only about 1% of earthquakes result in a tsunami. So while it's always important to be prepared, you shouldn't live in fear of a tsunami occurring. So don't worry too much. It's time to wrap up this episode. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and subscribe for more updates. Thanks for watching. See you next time.